Greetings to you all. My name is BenFerencz, and I'm speaking to you from Delray Beach, Florida. I want to thank David Krieger particularly for inviting me to share with you some of my observations about the Nuremberg trials and the impact that it's having on the world today. My thinking begins at World War II. I had interrupted my studies at the Harvard Law School to join the Army. I was engaged in all of the major battles of the war, including the landing at the beach of Normandy to the final Battle of the Bulge in Belgium. I had a very close eye view of what war really means by being assigned toward the end of the war by General Patton's headquarters to go into the concentration camps as they were being liberated and to assemble evidence of the crimes which were being committed there for possible use in later war crimes trials. This was all done while the war was still on. When the war was over, the United States had decided, in addition to the International Military Tribunal, which had been set up by the four powers, the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and France, that there would be additional trials, not merely those against Hermann Goering, who was well known, a few other luminaries, but also on the next range of leaders in different spheres, which made it possible for Germany to accept and carry out the horrific crimes committed by the Nazi regime. So we had trials against doctors for medical experiments. We had trials against judges and lawyers who perverted the law. We had trials against industrialists who financed the construction of concentration camps from which they could work to death without compensation. And it did serve to identify what we mean by the Nuremberg trials. Now, what were the main lessons that we hope to come out of that trial? Justice Jackson, who was a leading American jurist coming from the Supreme Court of the United States, said that aggression is the supreme international crime because in war, all of the other crimes are committed. And as a soldier, I can testify to that. There's never been a war without rape. There will never be a war without rape. If one is concerned with stopping that kind of crime, it would be prudent to try to stop war at the same time. The horrors of the concentration camp have been well depicted. Those who deny that it happened are either fools or vicious criminals, I don't know which. But I personally witnessed the horrors of the camps, dead bodies lying around, piled up like cordwood waiting to be burned, starvation, disease, people behaving like animals, groveling in the mounds of garbage for a piece of food that they might digest. All of that has played a very important role in my current thinking. I was hired by the Pentagon after the war was over to go back and assist with these subsequent proceedings, which were led by General Telford Taylor, who later became my law partner in New York. And in these trials, we were going to paint the entire panorama. I came upon the reports from the Eastern Front of special troops whose name was intended to disguise what they did. They were called Einsatzgruppen, the German word. Einsatz means action, groups are groups. Their assignment was to go in behind the German lines as they advanced into Poland and Russia and kill without pity or remorse every single Jewish man, woman, or child they could lay their hands on, and do the same with the gypsies, and then recorded it in daily reports sent to Berlin, top secret, consolidated there, sent out to a distribution list of 99 different people in the SS and German hierarchy. On my little adding machine, when it totaled over 1 million people murdered that way, one shot at a time, including infants being held by their mothers. I flew down from Berlin, where I had set up the headquarters for these investigations, and met with General Taylor in Nuremberg and said, we have to put on a new trial. He said, we can't. The Pentagon has already approved the budget. We have no troops for that. We have no people assigned for that. We can't start a new trial now. And I said, you cannot let these people go. It's impossible. I have in my hands absolute evidence, contemporaneous top secret documents sent from the field showing mass murder of 1 million people. He said, can you do it in addition to your other work? And I said, sure. So I became the chief prosecutor of the largest murder trial in human history. I was then 27 years old. Since that time, I have been devoting my entire life, practically, to trying to prevent again happening what I had seen, to help first create an international criminal court on a permanent basis, which had been decided, in fact, when the first United Nations Charter was drawn up. We the peoples, in order to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, then they laid it all out, the things they promised to do after millions of people had been killed, and which they haven't done, including disarmament, setting up an international military force, setting up a system of social justice, creating an international criminal court. None of these things became reality in the following years, except we began to work on the court. At least I did, and so did many others, until we finally had a court. And on their first case, they invited me to do the closing remarks for the prosecution, which I did. I was then 92 years old. Gives you some idea of the span of time which these things move. So what is the conclusion? The Nuclear Age Peace Foundation has been one of the loudest and most effective voices speaking against the use or possession of nuclear weapons. And of course it makes absolute sense, particularly today in the cyberspace age. Today we have the capacity from cyberspace of killing everybody on the planet by cutting off the electrical grid on planet Earth. So the danger has increased, not decreased. And what can you do about it? And what can I do about it? I've been trying to create courts defining what's permissible and what's not permissible in the hope that it would deter future actions of the type which I unfortunately had to witness in my lifetime. The Nuclear Age Peace Foundation has been doing the same thing under Dave Krieger's leadership with a small staff. And it's of vital importance, particularly now. All of the things which are not being done could be done if we just learned to carry out the first principle of the UN Charter, system of disarmament. And I sum it all up because people believe in slogans. Law, not war. If you could do that, if you could substitute law for it, how many billions of dollars would you save each day? How many millions of lives would you save? So there's nothing impossible about substituting a peaceful settlement of disputes instead of going out and killing other people you don't even know, and then resting and then starting again, which is the current system. That is an insane system. And eliminating nuclear weapons would be one early step in the right direction. There are many other steps still remaining, but first you need the determination of the public not to continue the current system. The big powers who are relying upon force to settle their problems will lead to only more death. I'm not talking about death for myself. I am now in my 98th year. I'm talking about the young people who'll be watching this program. You've got to stand up and say, as they did in the Vietnam War, hell no, Mr. President, we won't go. And the president had to go instead. So power lies in the people. Be brave, be courageous, never give up, and I hope that you'll have a more peaceful world than I've seen, and I wish you all the best of luck.